All right, so now we're going to talk about chapter number 4. And it is the chapter titled The Fear of Others. So, artwork, especially outside of the school setting, is usually made alone. Okay, so you're creating it in your little studio at your house or your art center or something like that. But oftentimes, art is made alone. But the reaction of other people still matter. Whether or not they should create problems for the artist, sometimes they do. We imagine critics surrounding us. We often become paralyzed by positive interactions or positive views of our work, or we follow the priorities of other. Artists only care about impressing others when they feel uncertain or insecure. So, as an artist, you really have to make sure that you seek constructive criticism, but remember that one's art is one's own. Oftentimes artists look for understanding, so they want others to affirm their ideas, but this also poses a risk because you're giving power to someone else. And then when they have that power, whatever they decide about your work, it can be hurtful if it's not in the favor that you would like. So you should really place time between finishing the work and then also showing it to others, but also making sure that you're creating your own judgment about the piece. So furthermore, you need to not worry about being misunderstood, because bending to the understanding that is set produces inauthentic but also bad artwork. So, artists should be careful about seeking acceptance. So, caring too much about acceptance allows others to decide whether your art is considered artwork at all. The need for acceptance can clash with your own work. So, you may stop yourself from doing your own work to do work that increases your acceptance. Oftentimes, artists face this dilemma between taking risks to do things, but also making sure that you're doing something that is acceptable, which takes no risks. So it's really, really important that you decide what your end goal is. So if you're wanting to only make work that is sellable or that is financially good for you, then that's one thing. But if you are wanting to create something that is based off of a specific concept, or you're trying to make a statement, you have to kind of define those things before you even start to create artwork, because those will kind of depict where you go. It's going to dictate your actions and then what's next for you. So you want to make sure that you can you're able to distinguish the difference between approval and acceptance. So acceptance only involves a community regarding your artwork, but approval requires that they actually like the artwork. In many cases, the two come apart, so one's art can be accepted without being approved of. Sometimes two works can, work against each other. In supportive communities, the two are tied. Seeking approval is even more risky than acceptance because it gives others power over you, because you're asking more from them than relying on more from them accordingly. So it's really important that you decide for yourself, what is your goal? Do you want your work to be approved? Do you want it to be accepted? Or do you want to just make with all the risks involved just because you have something to say and you want to say it visually? So make that decision. Okay, so now we're going to discuss chapter 5. Chapter 5 talks about some of your individual desires and how art is always bound to that. And feedback is total, and our art is always tied to who and what we are. So whatever you put into your artwork is what you're going to get out. The scary thing about your art for this reason is that it does not lie. It's not going to lie to you. If you're lazy, your artwork's going to be lazy. If you work hard, your artwork will show diligence. A true artist will always bear this fact in mind. They never feel unafraid of it. Instead, they learn to master it rather than letting their fear of the truth overwhelm them. Instead, the feedback that you receive from your artwork should improve you. One of the most serious barriers about doing good artwork is letting feedback throw you into uncertainty. If an artist is creating work and does not know how it will turn out, she may fear that it will reflect something inadequate. Sometimes the artist can see the finish line and the line between one's vision and one's current degree of execution. However, art is best understood by those who make it, not for those who just view it. The vision is only secondary. An artist can reach far and experience things across the globe and far into the past by research or looking at other artworks. But just know that the art made by the artist is concrete and it will always reflect who the artist is. And to do good work, you must be a part of your artist community and then also thinking about your time. It's important that you take feedback seriously, but you also want to take feedback only if you're ready to accept it, and that you're not already, down in the dumps before the feedback is even given. Something that was really important to me in graduate school was having these end of the semester or even in the quarter critiques with all the other graduate students and then also some of the faculty. And it's really important that your work is seen outside of the eyes of the maker, but also that it's seen outside of the eyes of the community that you're involved in. So as a ceramic artist, we look at clay entirely different versus how a painter would. But sometimes those things they marry each other. Not in a literal sense, but that sometimes painting can be involved in your work. So the work that I create now is very painterly, and it's important that I have a 2D perspective or feedback from a 2D artist, that they are also looking at my work too and how those two relate together. But you have to take that feedback with an open perspective, but then also know where to put it when you're done with it. Okay, so you get the feedback, but then how are you going to apply it? Or even should you apply it? Is it valid to you? Those things like that. It's important that you're aware of that and you're always questioning yourself. All right, so now let's talk about chapter 6. So chapter 6 starts the next part of the book, so part 2. And part 2 talks about the external fears. So this is the outside world. So you've already done the hard work, right? You've already dealt with all your fears and your struggles with creating the work. Now it's out in the world and new problems will come up from this. These problems force the artist to interact with the rest of the world. So the authors refer to this problem as ordinary. However, it emphasizes that the problems are not of no consequence. So those kind of happen based off of the work that you've made. There's more to art than just simply making artwork. If you're doing this as like a profession or as a serious outlet, then it's more than just making the work. Sometimes you must manage a gallery. So maybe you own a gallery selling all your work, or you must clean your studio, which is my least favorite chore. Or then you might have to do marketing. You might have to do social media marketing. You're wanting to get your work out there. It's also, or maybe you're in a situation where you're a teacher and an artist, and you might be teaching classes to, support yourself financially, and there's all these different things. Sometimes these activities will promote one's artwork, but it also takes you outside of the studio, and then it kind of gets in the way, and in many parts it's quite expensive. So the authors want to make sure that you're aware that there will be attempts to censor the work if it's too risque. So you want to make sure that you're ready for that and that you're able to process those challenging boundaries. Having a master's in fine art, which I have, is not required to produce art. So it's something to think about when you're creating work. What's your end goal? Where are you going to go after your initial schooling? The art world is really competitive, and that this can be a problem, and it's also just part of human nature. So you have all these different variables from the outside world that is coming in that is going to affect how you create work, but also how you navigate life after creating the work. So you have to make sure that you are aware of that there's going to be these things that pop up, like whether it's through your marketing or teaching or buying supplies or anything like that, that's going to affect how the outside world will influence you as an artist.